Today we are going to talk about Paul Gauguin's Tahiti. Taking a look at his paintings and life during this time of this colorful artist. I will put useful links in the description below the video so you can explore more about Gauguin's life, travel and art. See you on the other side.
The Sunday Painter. Please click and subscribe, hit the like button and don't forget the little bell so you will be the first when we have an inspirational idea.
Tahiti, what a beautiful place. So if you're like Gauguin, you have no money, no place to stay, then you hear about a place where you have food falling from the trees with beautiful people and views to paint. Sounds like the place to go even now. I'm sure, it may be a little different today, but then, it was a dream come true. Who was Gauguin? What did he paint in Tahiti? When we look back we know about the art that has become a part of our lives. We tend to forget that the artists are just like us. Same wants and needs that comes in our modern life. The best way to look at artists of the past is to step into their shoes and situation. I found this makes these works even more beautiful, when I know the story behind the art. So let's take a look and see if this works for you too. Eugène-Henri Paul Gauguin was a French post-impressionist artist, now recognized for his experimental use of color. Gauguin was an important figure in the symbolist movement as a painter, sculptor, printmaker, ceramist, and writer. We are going to skip the first part of his life and stories about how he left his wife and kids destitute to paint. Which is not true, it was her family that made him leave because he didn't have any money or prospect of a permanent job. This is an interesting story but maybe for another video. On to paint in Tahiti. After seeing his wife and children in Copenhagen, that would be the last time he would see them, Gauguin set sail for Tahiti in 1891, promising to return a rich man and make a fresh start. What beautiful thoughts must have ran through his mind. We have them from time to time too. You're having them now. Well, he started in Papeete, the capital of the colony and already much influenced by French and European culture. He was disappointed, his idea of what it would look like was more primitive. His first portrait of a Tahitian model is thought to be Vahini no Te Tiare, or in English, Woman with a Flower. His paintings of this time is his most prized works. He sent the painting to his patron George Daniel de Montfred, who was to become Gauguin's devoted champion in Tahiti. By late summer 1892 this painting was being displayed at Goupil's gallery in Paris. In all, Gauguin sent 9 of his paintings to Montfred. These were eventually exhibited in Copenhagen in a joint exhibition with the late Vincent van Gogh. Here is another story about Gauguin and Van Gogh's ear. For another video. I promise. These paintings seem well received, but only sold 2. He went to Tahiti twice. On the first trip he got married in a most unusual incident. One day he stopped into a native residence for food and drink. By the time he left he was getting married. This marriage has always provoked controversy because it was arranged and completed in the course of a single afternoon, and Taumana was just 13 years old at the time. This was not unusual. In Tahiti culture, when you can have babies it was time. Also considering that people didn't live very long and 50 was old age. In this painting of Taumana the title is Marahi Machua no, Taumana, which means Taumana has many parents, a reference to Taumana possessing foster parents as well as her natural parents in accordance with Tahitian custom. Gauguin had to negotiate with both sets of parents when arranging the marriage. These marriages would be arranged by their family for reasons of status or financial advantage. The marriages were generally not legally binding. Gauguin was not feeling well and had to return to France in 1893. Returning with some 70 other paintings he had completed. With health problems diagnosed as heart problems by the local doctor, may have been the early signs of cardiovascular syphilis. Gauguin returned to France, where he continued to execute paintings on Tahitian subjects. An exhibition at the Durand Ruel Gallery in November 1894 was a moderate success, selling at quite elevated prices 11 of the 40 paintings exhibited. He set up an apartment at 6 Rue Vercingétorix. Despite the moderate success of his November exhibition, he subsequently lost Durand Ruel's patronage in circumstances that are not clear. With many attempts to sell his work failed. By mid-1895 attempts to raise funds to return to Tahiti had failed, and he began accepting charity from friends. In June 1895 Eugène Carrière arranged a cheap passage back to Tahiti, and Gauguin never saw Europe again. He was back in Tahiti in June 1985. Spending the next 6 years living a comfortable life near Papeete. During this time he was able to support himself with an increasingly steady stream of sales and the support of friends and well-wishers, though there was a period of time 1898 to 1899 when he felt compelled to take a desk job in Papeete. He built a spacious reed and thatch house at Punayauia in an affluent area 10 miles east of Papeete, settled by wealthy families, in which he installed a large studio, sparing no expense. For the first year at least he produced no paintings, informing Manfred that he proposed henceforth to concentrate on sculpture. Few of his wooden carvings from this period survive, most of them collected by Manfred. His health took a decided turn for the worse and he was hospitalized several times for a variety of ailments. Now painful and debilitating sores that restricted his movement were erupting up and down his legs. Gauguin blamed the tropical climate and described the sores as eczema, but his biographers agree this must have been the progress of syphilis. Failing health and pressing debts brought him to the brink of despair. A failed suicide attempt gave him a new outlook on his work. At the end of the year he completed his monumental painting, Where Do We Come From? What Are We? Where Are We Going? Reading from right to left, with the three major figure groups illustrating the questions posed in the title. The three women with a child represent the beginning of life, the middle group symbolizes the daily existence of young adulthood, and in the final group, according to the artist, an old woman approaching death appears reconciled and resigned to her thoughts. At her feet, a strange white bird represents the futility uselessness of vain words. The blue idol in the background apparently represents what Gauguin described as the beyond. If you was wondering about Taumana, Gauguin's first Tahiti wife, well, when he got back she was remarried. He said that he loved her dearly but she never came back. He had other wives but would make the story a little too long. Let's look at his painting technique. His depictions of the natives in their natural environment are frequently evident of serenity and a self-contained sustainability. This complemented one of Gauguin's favorite themes, which was the intrusion of the supernatural into day-to-day life. He states, "Every feature in my paintings is carefully considered and calculated in advance." Just as in a musical composition. Gauguin explains the enormous step he had taken away from Impressionism and that he was now intent on capturing the soul of nature, the ancient truths and character of its scenery and inhabitants. As Gauguin's style progressed it became more symbolic and primitive. Gauguin's initial artistic guidance was from Pissarro. His painting technique is distinctive in the use of thick, bold, expressionistic brushstrokes. Gauguin often added wax to his paints to give them extra smoothness and flow, and the paint used is thin, being thinnest at the edges of forms where colors such as Prussian or cobalt blue and earth red is used to strengthen the shapes. He began using analogous colors in close proximity to achieve a muted effect. Shortly after this he also made his breakthroughs in non-representational color, or color that are not true to what you see. An example: grass is green, in his work it could be purple or pink. Non-representational color is that it is up to us to give it meaning through our own interpretation. If we see a pink mountain we still know it's a mountain. A palette discovered in his painting studio after he died suggests that Gauguin didn't put out his colors in any particular order. Nor did he clean his palette, instead mixing fresh colors on top of already dried up paint. During his time in Tahiti, Gauguin painted on unprimed hessian, and in many paintings the weave of the rough fabric is clearly visible through the paint. This was partly as a result of his thin paints and inability to pay for better materials, but also because the hairy surfaces of the sackcloth enhanced the primitive qualities he was looking for. He would say, "Don't copy nature too literally. Art is an abstraction. Derive it from nature as you dream in nature's presence, and think more about the act of creation than the outcome." Now on to the end. In March of 1903 Gauguin was very weak and in great pain, and resorted once again to using morphine. He died suddenly on the morning of May 8, 1903. Gauguin was buried in the Catholic Calvary Cemetery, Cimetière Calvaire, Achuona, Hiva Oa, at 2 p.m. the next day. In 1973, a bronze cast of his Aviri figure was placed on his grave, as he had indicated was his wish. Gauguin was considered a post-impressionist painter. His bold, Colorful and design-oriented paintings significantly influenced modern art. Artists and movements in the early 20th century was inspired by him. As always, there is a lot more to his story, but I want to touch on his Tahiti paintings and life. Hope you enjoyed the video, and if you like this and want more, click the button in the corner and subscribe. Thanks for watching.